Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Dungeons & Dragons Drogar campaign, and let's jump into this. So Schleepy finds Drogar. Drogar, this owlbear, not giant. Owlbears are, can't be willy-nilly with your language with Dungeons & Dragons. So Drogar is an owlbear. He is quite literally large size. He's not medium, he's large, right? Now, what does that mean in Dungeons and Dragons? Large size is interesting. So, basically, if you're medium, you take a 5 by 5 foot square. If you're large, you take a 10 by 10 foot square, right? So that's the best way to understand that, all right? So Drogar is digging a hole in this plains area, right? There's like kind of 18-inch grass here. There's this boulder in the middle of this hilly area, and there's some rolling hills. There's also Pickled Pete here, who is he is from Phandalin, the town that is 5 miles south, right? And he is a woodcutter. Okay, he aids woodcutters. All right. So, and actually, Pickled Pete is straight out of the Essentials box. Essentials box is fantastic. It has these cards. It has all the conditions on cards. It has uh, cards that will help you track initiative, and it has all these character cards, and it has equipment cards. It's pretty amazing box. I still use it to this day. It's really fantastic. The other thing is just a quick note: is the Dungeon Dragon are the new 2024 core rulebook rules completely compatible with everything that came before? Yes, yeah, like it's no problem using the 5e Essentials box with the 5e with the 5i 5 improved rule set. It's absolutely seamless, right? So that was promised by the design team. That has been delivered. Okay, all right. So at this point, you have so Schleepy comes and he has a plan. So actually, when Schleepy promised to Gurnigar to get Drogar, he took his ring of reach, which the wizard was like, "Take my ring," right? But then when he died, he also took his hat, right? Because his hat was clearly magical, right? And so he has his hat on him, and the hardcore player, was like, "Hey, I wanted to, he's like, I got this idea. I'm going to do an animal handling check, right? Now, this was really nice because, like, one, I'm playing for the first time with this player, and he's like, I'm going to do an animal handling check. So he's like, you meet people, they're like, I know D&D, right? But he does know D&D, right? And he's done this before, right? So he's like, I'm going to do an animal handling check, and I'm hoping it will give me advantage to actually have this hat, right? Because that will, and actually the player did not say, I'm hoping this will give me advantage. He said, I have this hat, right? And that will have Gurnigar's scent on it, which should make it easier. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I thought this was a brilliant idea, right? And I was like, that will give you advantage on the roll. So he goes to make this animal handling check. So he goes up and he literally does the Chris Pratt, right? He's like, hey, Owlbear, puts his hand up, and goes to calm this beast, and he makes his advantaged roll and fails. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, it was like an 8 and a 3, right? Like, so that was incredible. And again, I absolutely love Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons is so epic in that you really don't know what's going to happen. Like, you do not know what is going to happen. It is just so incredibly epic and special and wild, to just see what is happening. And it's really, and your plans and the player character's plans are interrupted. It's pretty wild, right? So at this point, the creature goes. I actually said, then I'm like, okay, now you've used your action, and now the owlbear turns and gets to, and is going to get his chance. Now at this point, I do the math in my head, right? This owlbear is, his lowest attack is 15, right? In addition to that, the Schleepy only has 9 hit points, right? So I now put it together in my head. Oh my gosh, one successful attack and this character is dead, right? Like dead, right? Like, so it was really wild. Like I was like, this is gonna get kind of crazy, right? Like so at this point, um, he has initiative, and he has two of these Yahtzee dice, which I've been giving out as rewards for good play, right? And I said, listen, if you give me your initiative and your two Yahtzee dice, I will let you go before the owlbear, right? And because I realized he's in a lot of danger here, right? And he says, bet, I'll take that deal, right? So he gives me all of his bennies, right? Like his initiative and these two bennies that I'm using in the game, right? And so at this point, he then jumps on top of the boulder, right? Which I thought that's a great idea. And then I expected, okay, he's going to just get. Now he's got a crossbow, right? And all he needs to do is just pluck, 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 and just and actually put enough arrows in this thing to kill it, or just send it off, and then he'll be, But then Pickled Pete is there, so the owlbear turns around, starts to run around the boulder, right, which Schleepy's on top of, and so the owlbear can't get to him right away, or at least have to spend one or two turns getting to him, right? And at this point, he sees Pickled Pete and begins to charge toward Pickled Pete, and then Schleepy says, "Okay, no problem, I got it. I'm going to leap onto the owlbear's back." Right now, at this point, he has no more bennies. If he fails this and he falls, this owlbear's going to tear him apart and kill him. Right, but I was incredibly impressed. He could have stayed up there. He could have just plunked this thing with. He could have stayed up on top, and then just put all 20 bolts that he has into this owlbear, right, and killed it. Right, but instead he risked his life. He leapt from the boulder onto the owlbear, Drogar, and it worked. He got on, and then I said, okay, you actually pull him to a stop, and at that point he just simply jumps down and holds up Gurnigar's hat, right, and it shocks Drogar. He recognizes the hat of his master, and he starts smelling it, and he just starts rubbing his face on it, and at this point, he actually trusts Schleepy. Right, and so he trusts Schleepy, and now Schleepy has control of Drogar, and Drogar is a domesticated mount, right? And so he actually wants to be ridden at this point because his world isn't hunting for his own food anymore. He's very, it's very different, right? So at that point, he's 5 miles south of Phandalin, and I said, Pickled Pete thanks you. And they have a nice conversation. And then I said, okay, and then, you now have control of Drogar. And you have Gurnigar the Wizard's, you have all of his gold, everything in his bag, right? And you have his spell book, which assassins came to kill people to get, right? And you have Drogar, who is now your mount, right? And you're 5 miles south of Phandalin. And I did give him a choice, right? I said, and this is how I end every one of my D&D sessions. End scene. And that was it. That was the end of the session. And hopefully the start of a great new campaign. I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to play some more. And I was extreme. And also, I firmly believe every single session you run is the start of a campaign. You may DM it further, or someone else may, but that's the start of a campaign. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion, and it is my humble opinion that this was an amazing campaign. I had such a great time, and I had such a great time sharing it with you. Thank you so much for letting me share this with you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion, nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.